Good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, October 14th. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect partly sunny skies and a high of 92 degrees in San Antonio today. In Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton's first interview, since 7 of his top aides accused him of accepting bribes and abusing his office, he said Tuesday that he was about to put one of them, First Assistant Attorney General Jeff Mateer, on administrative leave when Mateer made those accusations and resigned instead. Paxton also said he's now investigating 2 of his top staffers. On expressnews.com today, we'll tell you about the new exhibit coming to the McNay Art Museum, and we'll have tips on baking variations of the classic pecan pie. And now let's move on to our top stories for the day. Thousands of Bexar County voters stood in long lines Tuesday as they waited their turn to speak their minds at the ballot box on the first day of in-person early voting for the November 3rd elections. Some voters endured waits of more than 4 hours at traditionally heavily visited sites. Meanwhile, county officials used the backdrop of the double-height courtroom at the Bexar County Courthouse to unveil a plan to maintain the integrity of the elections. Bexar County District Attorney Joe D. Gonzalez announced the creation of an election response team, which would be available to County Elections Administrator Jacqueline Callen and her staff from now until Election Day. You can read more about that effort and the voting experience at several locations at the link in this episode's description. After about 7 months of live entertainment shifting almost exclusively to the virtual realm because of the pandemic, it's tiptoeing back, mostly with solo artists or small ensembles playing to socially distanced audiences. And since big tours remain sidelined and restrictions on the size of gatherings are still in place, it's likely to stay that way for a long time. From institutions like the AT&T Center and the Tobin Center to smaller spaces like the Paper Tiger or Green Hall, Deborah Martin gives us a look at how local venues are putting together smaller events. Terry Corliss is one of the biggest, most outspoken bar and restaurant owners in downtown San Antonio. His career in the hospitality industry spans 5 decades. The UK native has run a catering business and managed hotels, restaurants, discotheques, and nightclubs in England, Hong Kong, Dubai, Australia, and Bahrain. He moved here in 2000 and became the general manager of Mad Dogs. He has created a mini restaurant empire on and around the Riverwalk. He talked with Randy Diamond about San Antonio's appeal and his plans and the ways the coronavirus pandemic is changing the business. Columnist Gilbert Garcia spent nearly 3 hours standing in a long line outside Tobin Library on the northeast side to cast a ballot on Tuesday. Given all the partisan rancor in this country right now and the deep emotional funk that the COVID-19 pandemic has created, there was something reassuring about what I experienced Tuesday, he writes. What could the early voter turnout mean for the final results? As a general rule, people don't wait in long lines to register their happiness with the status quo, Garcia writes. Find out why Garcia thinks the old metrics and assumptions have to be thrown out in this catharsis election. October 13th is the first day of early voting in Texas. Check out our interactive map of early voting locations in Bexar County and visit our 2020 Voters Guide for more information about voting, the candidates, and ballot measures. You can find links to all of these guides in this episode's description. To keep our readers up to date on the path of COVID-19, the Express News has built a dashboard of interactive graphics showing the spread of the virus in the San Antonio area, in Texas as a whole, and across the United States. We've also created an interactive map of San Antonio for COVID-19 testing sites that don't require a doctor's referral. You can find a link to the dashboard and the interactive map in this episode's description. Also, be sure to check out other Express News podcasts such as Puro Politics, In Depth, and the Express News editorial board. You can find links to those podcasts in this episode's description. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside your Express News subscription. The San Antonio Metropolitan Health District reported 6 COVID-19 deaths on Tuesday and 172 new cases of the coronavirus. The deaths brought Bexar County's fatality toll since the start of the pandemic to 1,207. A federal appeals court on Wednesday struck down a Texas law that sought to ban a common type of second trimester abortion called dilation and evacuation, reasoning that it violated a woman's constitutionally protected right to the procedure. If voters approve a reallocation of a 1/8 cent fraction of the city's sales tax, VIA could depend on roughly $38 million annually, but not until 2026 to fund the agency's future plans for an advanced rapid transit system featuring more buses on dedicated lanes. Bill Miller Barbecue is planning to start work on a new $60 million headquarters early next year. Construction of a 2-story, 355-square-foot building for the San Antonio company's operations is expected to start in January. A Bexar County jail inmate's attempt to kill himself, the third such incident in more than a month, was interrupted by a detention deputy Tuesday afternoon, officials said. The September rent report from Realtor.com found that Bexar County ranked in the top 10 markets nationwide for rising studio rents. Last month, the median rent of a studio apartment was $941, a 13.4% increase year over year. Dak Prescott is home from the hospital. The Cowboys are signing a backup quarterback, but there are still more questions than answers regarding Dak's future in Dallas. We have what the NFL experts are saying at the link in this episode's description. Home sales and prices in the San Antonio area soared in September amid pent-up demand, low interest rates, and a tight supply of available homes. Hours before the polls opened for early voting, the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled late Monday night to uphold Governor Greg Abbott's order limiting mail ballot drop-off locations to no more than one per county. San Antonio voters face 3 big ballot propositions with the potential to have a major impact on this city's future. On the latest episode of the Puro Politics podcast, you can hear why the bulk of that money, nearly $770,000, has gone to the campaign that needs the least help. Columnist Chris Tomlinson writes, quote, "The COVID-19 pandemic gave Americans more than 9 billion hours of our lives back over the summer. Find out how they spent that time in his latest article." Columnist Michael Taylor writes, quote, "A reminder that a real conversation could be had and should be had around money, wealth, inequality, deficits, innovation, approaches to the economy, and taxation. You know, the basics." At Port San Antonio, a 7-story tall laser welding robot is ready to blast paint and coatings from aircraft and other machinery. Brandon Lingo has the story in this collaboration with Report for America. Did it really surprise anyone when Trump mocked Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's propensity for a diligent mask wearing at the debate? The Express News editorial board asks in today's editorial, why are we still fighting over masks? The coronavirus pandemic is turbocharging shifts already underway in the retail industry, raising questions about which changes are temporary or permanent and which stores will still be around when it's over. One of those trends is online shopping, which has surged during the pandemic. Shoppers unable or unwilling to venture inside stores have increasingly turned to curbside pickup and delivery to get their groceries and other goods. The spike prompted retailers to rush to spruce up their websites, add more time slots for pickup, and hire workers to fill and drop off orders. It's also widened the gap between businesses that were set up for online sales prior to the pandemic and those that were not. Madison Eisler explains how the pandemic is reshaping retail in her latest Skyline column. This week, Essays Common Critters, San Antonio's gray foxes are becoming more visible with urban sprawl. These shy cuties mate for life, make the cutest babies ever, and can even climb trees like a cat. You can learn more about them in the latest entry to our Common Critters series. A new hard seltzer has swept into San Antonio over the past few months, and the beverage lives up to its name. Paul Stevens has more on Blue Norther, a Texas-made hard seltzer with ties to San Antonio's Battle of the Alamo. We have what you need to know about the new Texas and Jewish delicatessen inspired by the Hayden on Broadway near Alamo Heights. The newest drive-in movie theater on the city's south side recently announced its Halloween lineup, and it's inviting a special guest from the 1988 cult horror movie Child's Play to one of its showings. The action comedy Love and Monster tops our list of what's new or notable in home video. And that's all for today. This is your Express Briefing for Wednesday, October 14th. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful day, everyone.